there's a lot of folks that we're talking to, and I would say that the majority of the people that are our clients, we've done about 100 transactions already this year. The majority of people that we have worked with have kind of had that stance where, hey, I don't have to buy, I don't have to sell. I'd like to. They're opportunistic transactions. Not a lot of people are in a position yet where, hey, I have to sell because I've lost my job. Or, yes, I've been furloughed, but I see the writing on the wall and now's the time to sell and cash in on my equity, buy something else before things get any worse. And we're going to talk about a few of those scenarios as time goes by. But let's focus on three key things right now first, and then we'll kind of just build a story around what's happening in the market, and then I think what's going to happen. And I will say this, because for those that have listened to this show for the past 8 years, and you can go back and you can listen to the shows kind of toward the tail end of the year where I make my predictions for the following year, I get it right 90-ish% of the time. I mean, there are a few things that I've gotten wrong. I did say, maybe 2 years ago that I thought the interest rates were going to start to creep up, and well, part of that was true. They did for a little while. The market couldn't handle it, and then they came back down. And so fast forward to today, and you can get an interest rate for under 3%, literally the lowest they've ever been. Unbelievable opportunities to borrow money very inexpensively right now. But let's focus on unemployment, GDP, inflation, how that impacts the real estate market, and then just what's happening to some of these different sectors of people, the people that are both directly and indirectly impacted by this pandemic. So if we look at unemployment, I don't want to necessarily focus on the numbers. What I want to focus on is just the divide in unemployment. The people that are indirectly impacted by the pandemic and just everything that's happened over the past 6 months at this point, those industries have actually seen some pretty major business booms. I mean, ask real estate agents how their business is. And for the majority of them that are actually working, that run their business like a business, they're going to tell you that they're having one of the best years they've ever had. 2019 was kind of like the year of all years. And so even if we're comparing our business now to business last year and we say, oh, well, yeah, we're down 5% from last year or we're up from last year. I mean, those, for a lot of people, that's a pretty incredible feat. But these are folks that, the folks that are kind of in the upper tier of the population when it comes to earnings, they're only at a 5% unemployment rate right now. They're actually reaping some of the benefit. Whereas the other folks, the folks that have been directly impacted, leisure and hospitality as an example, I mean, they've got 21% unemployment. So for those folks, it makes it even harder to get into the game. It makes it harder for them to get into the market. And they're in a position right now where they're seeing prices continue to rise. Their income has either flatlined or stopped. They don't see the light at the end of the tunnel as far as being able to start making more money. And so what are they going to do? They're going to rent, or if they own right now, if things get, bad enough, then they're either going to be in default or they're going to proactively sell and say, hey, I've got equity in this thing, and I'm not going to run the risk of not being able to buy something if I have to miss a mortgage payment or two and my credit gets impacted negatively to the point where even if I could realistically afford the home, because of all the stipulations that lenders have when it comes time to get a mortgage, I wouldn't be able to get a mortgage, because they said, oh, sorry, well, you had 2 missed payments. So your credit score is so low now that you can't get a mortgage. Or if you do, we're going to have to charge you more interest, which in the grand scheme of things might not be all that bad considering how low they are, but still. And so you've got two totally different experiences basically happening right now. And what that does is it creates market uncertainty. And when that happens, then you have, fewer investments into real estate on an individual level. You'll certainly have some institutional investors that will step up, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But if you look at, a recession, what defines a recession? It's 2 quarters of a drop in GDP in a row. And so we're looking at a pretty incredible drop in GDP, really the biggest percentage change we've seen in about 3 decades. And you look at how that impacts new construction. I'm not an economist. You guys know this about me. But I do follow the numbers. I follow the trends. I relate that back to our local real estate market, so you have a really good understanding of what's going to happen and what's influencing the trends. I mean, it's something I've been following for years and years and years and years and years. I've been licensed for 15 years, and I got started at the tail end of 2006. So I was kind of born into a market where I had to be a market expert. Part of the reason why I have this show is to help you guys understand what's happening. So if you look at how something like GDP and just how the overall economics impact something like new construction, which frankly has been kind of clawing its way out of a paper bag for the past decade and finally was starting to show some real improvement, well, we all know we need inventory. And, not just on a macro level for each individual, buyer, but also on a macro level so we can return to a more balanced market. I mean, the reality is this: it is not healthy to be in a buyer's market or a seller's market for too long. So naturally, you want to return to kind of a balanced state where supply and demand are fairly in line with one another. It creates appreciation that's kind of in line with inflation. Who knows what that will be a few years from now? Separate discussion entirely. But, new construction is trying. They're just not putting things on the market quickly enough to keep up with demand. I mean, total housing production is actually up 23% nationally, according to the Commerce Department and HUD. But, I mean, just lumber prices, as an example, have shot up 110% since April. I mean, that adds an extra $14,000 per home to the average cost to a builder to build it. And a lot of us, frankly, are already feeling like they're putting up homes really fast and inexpensively. So if they're now absorbing an additional $14,000 expense just for the lumber, where are they going to make that up? How are they going to cut a corner? Are they going to cut a corner? You see how it starts to create some financial challenges for builders that, frankly, we need in order to put inventory on the market to return to normalcy? So really, what all of these things combined really just kind of means that prices are likely to change in favor of buyers really anytime soon, especially here locally when we have so many people that have identified Charleston as the place that they want to move to, especially from folks that are from the Northeast. But we're getting a lot of folks now from Texas, Kentucky, Midwest area that are moving this way as well. But no one has a crystal ball, and I'm trying to stay kind of out of my own crystal ball here. So the question is, where do we go from here? What does this future of real estate look like from a market standpoint? What sort of questions should you be asking? What should your thought process look like right now? How are agents going to continue to adapt to this real estate market and create favorable conditions for you to sell a home and get the most money possible, or buy a house and not have to compete with 20 other people for that same home? They're going to jack that price way up. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And remember, if you want to reach out to me, 843-400-8009 is my number, 843-400-8009. Or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.